Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man? They say murder three. Strange things that happen here. How stranger would it be
If I don't hit the archive
if we
button,
met
go
at
ahead.
midnight in the hanging tree?
Welcome to Strange Things, broadcasting from the Raimundo Rios Mayo Library in Arkanasa. Welcome to Strange Things. I'm your host, Chris James. Hope you enjoyed our last episode when we were talking about the chupacabras. Tonight we're going to be talking about strange encounters, things that have happened to people when they're just going about their business, not looking for anything unusual. They have an encounter, something they can't explain. Some of them are bizarre, some of them are quite weird. We will be having live studio guests tonight. Hopefully y'all will enjoy our show tonight. Our first guest was working up on a ranch to the north of Laredo, Texas. He works for the government. He'd worked this area on many occasions in the past. He had some rather strange encounter with some people from across the river. So we will be interviewing him about what it was that he had encountered and what he'd seen. You're working up on Mines Road near Tiendas Road when you saw a trail running across the road of approximately 6 people?
Yeah, that's correct. Usually when we're out there cutting the ranches, checking around for activity, the first thing that we usually do is go out there and look for tracks. And on this day, we found tracks of about 6 that crossed from one of our ranches into across Mines, across Tiendas, and into the Ruthinger. And we started pushing the group. I would say it was maybe about 2 hours or so that maybe we were behind this group. I had just taken over the shift, and I asked my other partners if they had anything going on. They had just finished cutting, and there was nothing there. So that was about the time I was gauging it at, about 2 or 3 hours.
Was this in the evening?
It was the afternoon, getting dark.
Already. You just don't want to use flashlights or make any noise at night because you would alert people that you were pursuing them?
Yeah, oh, yeah. That's something that if you have to use your flashlight, you cover it with your hand and just barely any little light that comes out, just so that you know that the track's still there and you keep going with your lights off.
Now, these people you're pursuing, they're just plain folks out looking for employment somewhere in the country?
Yes.
Then you've got the smugglers, the guys you don't much want to deal with.
Yeah, those are the ones that we're careful with. If they're using a trail that's been known for drugs, if they're in an area that has been known for drugs, because there's different areas, if they make it to a certain point, and after that point, those people are what we call long haulers. They're going to be out there for days and days making it to their trip. But usually, if it's these certain areas, it's just for drugs, and that's it.
Yeah, you don't want to walk up on a group of smugglers who are armed to the teeth. It would just not be a good idea. And unfortunately, there's no way of knowing if you're dealing with just people looking for employment or drug smugglers until you've actually got them in custody. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And if it's a situation like that, it's always guns out and your head on a swivel after that.
You encountered this group eventually?
Yes, about 3 hours later, we had been pushing this group till finally we got closer to them and we found them.
You said
we placed them under arrest. We took them back to the station to process them, and there the group got split up. We started taking their fingerprints and started interviewing them, and that's where pretty much the events occurred from there.
And what was the story that they told you?
That all of them told me because I was the arresting agent. All of them told me that they were being pursued by something big, and one of the ladies told me that it was as big as an elephant.
That's big.
Oh yeah, and that it had been chasing them for about half an hour or so.
Now, there's cattle and other animals out on these ranches, but nothing that could come in close proximity to something like an elephant.
No, never. The biggest thing, if anything, would be, like you said, cattle. There is a few ranches that have buffalo there, but we weren't in that ranch. And you can't mistake a buffalo for an elephant.
That's true.
Yeah.
There are mountain lions out there.
Yes.
And they will chase down anything that they think they can make a meal out of.
Yes.
But you don't know there's a mountain lion following you until it's too late. They will sneak up on you, and you don't know they're there. Rocky Elmore, who used to work out in California, has some really good stories about that. But if you'd like to look into his book, it's called Out on Foot, available at Amazon.com. So you're questioning these people about being pursued by something.
Yes.
And they all told the same story, even though they weren't sitting together.
Yeah, and usually when we apprehend people like that, they'll tell you different stories. And after this, I really didn't think much of it. I just thought that was kind of weird that something out there was chasing them as big as an elephant.
Most of these folks work on ranches, so they should know what kind of wildlife is running around out there.
Yes.
So this group was being pursued by something through the ranch, something that they described as being the size of an elephant, and apparently it had been following them for some time. What eventually happened to the group?
What happens to this group is they'll get processed accordingly, and they get returned to their respective countries.
And what happened after that?
Well, I'd say it was about maybe 8 months to a year later. I'm out there working around the same area, looking for tracks again. As soon as I get there, I start cutting around, and I run across some more sign, and start working the group.
Alrighty. Did you find the group this time?
Yes, this time this group was kind of a quick group, and we did catch up to it pretty fast. We had more agents helping us out this time. They were doing cut-aheads.
Mm-hmm.
And what a cut-ahead is you're following a general direction. You tell your partners to go and check ahead of you, maybe a mile or so, and check if the sign is there. And sure enough, it was there. We were able to get picked up, dropped off at that place, and that's when we were getting closer to the group. We hear a little bit of brush breaking, and two females come out running towards me. And just the look in their face was scary, because you could see the fear in their eyes.
Now, you're an emergency medical technician, so most aliens know if they get in trouble, you're the guy they want to come find, right?
Yes.
We're going to take a brief break, play a few commercial messages. We will be right back after these. You're listening to Arkanasa Radio. Looking for a great cup of coffee? The Organic Man Coffee Shop at 1108 Lincoln, downtown Laredo, Texas. Serving only the best organic coffee in the world. Not a coffee person? They have hot chocolate, hot tea, and iced drinks if that's your drink of choice. The Organic Man Coffee Shop, 1108 Lincoln, downtown Laredo, just a half block west of the Mercado. Do you have skin? Would you like to take better care of it? Call Lourdes James, independent beauty consultant, and set up an appointment. Call 723-3019. If your vision isn't what it used to be, and you're not sure you're seeing Bigfoot or just your neighbor mowing his lawn, stop on by Del Norte Optical, 107 Calle del Norte, just across the street from the Embassy Suites. You should be able to see what you're looking at.
No, don't say goodbye. Stay with us. This is Arcanesa Radio. Quédate con nosotros. Estás escuchando Arcanasa Radio.
Welcome to Strange Things, broadcasting from the Raimundo Rios Mayo Library in Arcanasa.
I wasn't that.
Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed those commercials. So you were following another group in approximately the same area as before.
Yes. This time, this group got maybe, I would say, 8 or 10 miles farther than the other group that I had apprehended. Their intended destination was the Union Pacific Railroad station, and there what they do is they'll jump on a railroad car or something, and they'll hitch a ride. Mm-hmm. And so usually these guys are what we call OTMs. Other than Mexicans, they come from other countries other than Mexico. So as we got closer to them, that's when these two females came out and ran towards me.
Mm-hmm.
And the fear in their face, they were super excited and actually glad that we came and found them. They they had told us that for about an hour and a half they were being chased by something. And what scared them is that it was actually growling at them and snarling at them. And I wound up finding them in a dry creek bed. And it was super, super thick to get in there. If they would have stayed in there without ever coming out, I would have never found them in there.
Yeah, I've chased groups into areas where you walk right past them. You don't even know they're in there. It's a good thing they let you know.
Yeah.
And what was their story?
They all, men included, the exact same story. We had if I remember correctly, it was about a group of 8. So we had to transport them in 2 different vehicles, and they were separate, but they pretty much said the exact same story that this creature was following them, growling at them and snarling at them, and these guys had to run towards that empty creek bed, and they hid there because it was just walking around them for about 30 minutes.
Circling them like sharks in the ocean.
Yes.
Just try to imagine the fear these people must have felt.
Just the look on their face would have told you everything. And that it was around them, just going in circles for about 30 minutes before we had got there. They saw our flashlights, and that's how we knew it was the agents coming towards them.
Even amongst the people crossing the border illegally, there's a pecking order. Smugglers seem to think that they're the top of the chain, and because they're the ones making most of the money, maybe they are. Then you've got the illegal aliens who are just looking for work. We call them brush walkers. And then the OTMs, they're kind of taking last place in everything. No one treats them well. Mexican authorities have been known to throw them in jail just for being in the country illegally. They'll fine them whatever money they've got and then throw them out of the country. Unfortunately, a lot of times when they do throw them out of the country, they'll pitch them into the United States, and we get stuck with them. So you took these people back to the office. There was no chance that they would have talked to the group ahead of them?
Oh, no. There was totally different people, totally different parts of the countries. These guys were totally different from the other countries that the other people came from. And it was just, after this group, then I started wondering if they were onto something or if something was really out there, because we hear crazy stories from them, but never have I heard the same story twice.
It kind of makes you wonder if maybe there's just some kind of a large, hair-covered black creature running around out there north of Laredo, and until somebody actually captures the thing or catches it on a video camera, we're not going to know for sure what it could be. But It sounds like not a very pleasant place to be, especially after sundown. My next guest, Paulina, was studying to be a school teacher, and she was attending classes at the Laredo Junior College. Today, that same place is known as Laredo Community College. They changed the name sometime or other. I don't remember when exactly. But, okay, so you were on your way to becoming a school teacher. It was 1994. And you're heading to class early in the morning.
Yes, I had just graduated from high school and started college. I was taking an art class. It was one of my first classes. And it was at the time when I knew how to drive, but I didn't have my own car. So my dad worked at the magnet school here at downtown. And he would drop me off super early in the morning before light, you know. Mm-hmm. And always, he never wanted to get home, work late. So it was around maybe between 7 and 7:15. He would drop me off at the entrance of LCC, and I'd have to walk all the way through the main street, all the way to the back. My art class was one of the last classes in that first street. And as I was walking, it was completely dark, no one else around. As I was walking, I lifted my head and I looked toward, I guess it's towards the riverside. And there was a lot of brush. Today, there's like a gate, like a black gate.
Yes.
But there was nothing back then. So it's just all brush. And I lifted my head, I looked up, and I saw a lady in white. And she was just like moving along the brush, and it looked like she was just floating. And she had, I just remember her long black hair. She had a white dress, very long, but I looked at her legs and there were no legs. So it was as if she was just floating across the brush. And it was that kind of brush that looks kind of like foggy.
Yes.
And, she wasn't walking. She was just floating. And I got scared. I'm sure I turned completely white, turned around and walked back all the way to the music building. And they, back then they had payphones.
Yes. And
my heart was beating so fast that I went back. I called my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband. And I called him. I told him, I saw a ghost. What do? I don't know what to do. There's nobody around. And he told me to calm down, just stay there, wait until the sun comes up. And I did. I waited, but it was just, a moment where I just freaked out. My heart was pounding. I didn't know what to do, and I didn't want to go back there. But once the sun came up and people came out and started coming into college, and I felt a little better. I walked back to my class. And everyone still saw me when I went in, so my face was totally white. And they asked me what happened, and I started explaining, and everyone started coming up with other stories that they had seen, but nobody had seen that lady in white.
Hmm. Now, for people that don't know Laredo area, where the community college is today, the junior college, used to be Fort McIntosh. It was built way back when they had horses. Soldiers on horseback. The college was built in 1849. The place has a lot of history. During World War II, it was super developed. It was packed with soldiers. They were preparing for the eventual invasion from Mexico, which never did take place. But there is a wealth of history out in that area. Did you ever make it through school okay?
I did. I did without any other incidents, of course. But, of course, I told my father after that, I don't want to go that early. And pretty soon I got my own car, took myself to college and parked where I needed to park. But, yeah, no. That was the only time, and I never wanted to see anything like that again.
Oh, I can imagine. A short time after Paulina's incident, a group of men were practicing for a baseball game out at the field at LCC. The baseball field was built right next to what had been the fort's cemetery. They were playing basketball. The sun was about to go down, so they figured they'd better finish up and get out of there. They started loading their equipment into the backs of their cars when one of the men looked up and he said, "What's that woman over there doing?" So all the men turned and looked in the direction he was pointing, and there was a woman wearing a white dress, full length, had long black hair, and that's when they noticed once again she was drifting across the road. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know if they should report this to someone or if they should just simply get the heck out of there. They voted for getting the heck out of there. They piled into their cars and drove away quickly. They don't cover that sort of thing in any kind of classes you take. They don't say, if you see a ghost, you need to do this or you need to do that. Maybe somebody should consider teaching classes what to do when you encounter something that you can't understand. But until that happens, you'll just have to do your best and hope nothing bad comes of it. My next two guests, Gracie and her brother Frank. They had a bizarre incident one morning when getting ready to go for a drive. It was in 2013?
Yes.
Already? So you're getting into your car, getting ready to go somewhere, and what happened?
It was actually in the afternoon, in the evening. I visit my parents at the time. I go to my parents' house every day after work, and I was about getting ready to go back to my house, and it was close to 9 when I backed out of the driveway, and you're putting the car into drive, and you look up, and I see some lights that are just above the car, and it's maybe 10 to 15 feet higher than a telephone pole.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just sitting there looking at it, wondering what it could be, because the lights are like flashing at me. And first thought was maybe it's a helicopter or something with spotlights or something. And by the time I get my phone to take a picture, it just vanished up into the air. And as I was going back to the house, I took a turn. I took a drive around the neighborhood, and I noticed that other people in the neighborhood were also looking up at the sky. So I know it wasn't me who had looked at this object up in the sky.
Mm-hmm. Did you contact your brother at all?
I called my family, as my brothers and sisters, and told them what I had seen, and we all got in the car and went riding around town, and we didn't see anything.
Frank, did you happen to see this object at all?
No,
I
didn't.
Have you seen anything bizarre like that since then?
No, I haven't. And that was the only time. It was all when this oil business, the oil boom, had come into play. So, I mean, I don't know whether it was drones or something, or it could have been, I don't know. It was just too unreal.
In 2013, there was quite a spat of sightings in and around the Cotulla area. It was what we would call a hot spot, and big plans were made that the LPRS, the Laredo Paranormal Research Society, was going to go up and investigate. But unfortunately, what with schedules and people having lives that they needed to lead, the trip was never successfully manifest. But yes, Cotulla was having quite a run of UFO sightings at that time.
Yes, there was a lot of reports online about of oil field workers noticing lights and whatnot in the sky. So yes.
Yes, we also had a report from the Organic Man coffee shop, but he's not here to tell his story tonight, so perhaps we'll get him in here sometime later. So, Frank, you had an interesting story.
Yes, I was working at the Laredo Children's Museum, which was part of the Laredo Community College. I always felt very uncomfortable in the chapel itself, the Children's Museum.
The museum was in the old chapel at the Fort McIntosh.
So you could just feel like somebody was just staring at you. That's one story. The second one was after the day, we would lock the door, put the alarm, lock the door, the chains, and then lock the wooden door. But that one night, the alarm went off after I had locked the door. So I opened it up again, undo the alarm, put back the alarm, again the chain door, the heavy door, about to leave. The second time the alarm goes off, again I go back, do it, the same thing. But by the time that I get up to undo the lock, the alarm, something in the back just fell. You could hear that big noise. And we're like, this is, no one's in here. No one's
not the kind of thing you want to hear in a dark building.
Not in a dark building. So again, I put the alarm, close the doors, lock it, and we were out of there. But the following day, I asked the workers, and they're like, no, there's nothing on the floor. Everything's fine.
No sign that anything had been disturbed.
No.
Did they ever come up with an idea as to what was causing the alarm to go off?
No.
Considering how old that building is, it wouldn't be surprising at all that there's something running around in there, something from another dimension, something we can't see. But that is an old building, and they are known to have people hanging around from the past. Just because we can't see them doesn't mean that they're not there.
Yeah.
We're going to take a brief pause here. Let you all be entertained by these commercials, and we will be right back. You're listening to Arkanasa Radio. Do you have skin? Would you like to take better care of it? Call Lourdes James, independent beauty consultant, and set up an appointment. Call 723-3019. If your vision isn't what it used to be, and you're not sure you're seeing Bigfoot or just your neighbor mowing his lawn, stop on by Del Norte Optical, 107 Calle del Norte, just across the street from the Embassy Suites. You should be able to see what you're looking at. Looking for a great cup of coffee? The Organic Man Coffee Shop at 1108 Lincoln, downtown Laredo, Texas. Serving only the best organic coffee in the world. Not a coffee person? They have hot chocolate, hot tea, and iced drinks if that's your drink of choice. The Organic Man Coffee Shop, 1108 Lincoln, downtown Laredo, just a half block west of the Mercado.
No, don't say goodbye. Stay with us. This is Arkanasa Radio. Quédate con nosotros. Estás escuchando Arkanasa Radio.
Welcome to Strange Things, broadcasting from the Raimundo Rios Mayo Library in Arkanasa. Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed those stories. One of my own stories happened several years ago when I was coming back from San Antonio, Texas. My wife and I had stayed till approximately 11 o'clock, so we're driving back. It's late at night. She had gone to sleep on the passenger seat, so I cranked up Coast to Coast on the radio, and I listened as I drove home. I don't remember what they were talking about on the radio, but as I'm approaching the outskirts of Laredo, there's a railroad bridge that runs across the highway, and it's got a bit of a curve to the highway, and some people have a little difficulty maneuvering through there, especially late at night, and some of them have been known to drink a few. So I turned the cruise control off, slowed down to about 60 miles an hour, looked around, make sure there wasn't any traffic, make sure there wasn't anything that I could possibly have a bad encounter with. And I noticed a very pale figure on the side of the road right under the railroad bridge. He was just past the cement pillars that hold the bridge up. As I'm approaching, I'm staring at this guy because I'm afraid that he's going to do something silly like step out into traffic. He was completely naked, which that's not the kind of thing you want to see late at night. He was emaciated. His arms were so thin it looked like there was nothing but a skeleton with the skin stretched over it. The skin was way too white. This man didn't look human. He looked otherworldly almost. He was on his hands and his knees, and he was crawling along the edge of the cement embankment. As I looked at him, the only thing I could think of was this had to have been some really far-gone drug addict or alcoholic who was literally on his last legs, and he was just crawling off into the bushes. I thought about stopping. I thought about it for about 2 seconds as I zipped past the man, thinking, well, I've got my wife in the truck with me. It's late at night, and I'm not actually a cop. I do carry a gun and a badge, but it's a different form of law. So I decided the best thing to do was to just let him be and continue on my way. He didn't appear to be dying or anything like that. So I kept going and finally got to our house, pulled into the driveway, and my wife woke up, and I told her what I'd seen. And she thought, well, it was probably just some drunk crawling on the side of the road. Didn't think anything of it after that. We went up to Jefferson, Texas, to have a go at the Texas Bigfoot Convention held in Jefferson every year. And while we're there, we met a couple of men who run a podcast called Expanded Perspectives. A very good show. If you ever get a chance, you should listen. They come out on Monday night. You can pick it up on the computer. If you've got Pod Addict, that's where their favorite broadcast is. They have a few other broadcasts as well. Anyway, I heard these two guys talking about their podcast, and I thought it might be worth looking into. So I looked them up when I got home, and they were talking on their story about the rake. The rake is this legendary creature that people have cited, and people have drawn pictures of it, but no one's ever taken a photograph and never had the ability to. I looked at the pictures of what they were calling the rake, and darned if that wasn't what I had seen. The only difference between what I'd seen and what the pictures shown is the creature in the drawings have huge eyes. Now, the man I saw was not facing me. He was pointing in the direction of the side of the road, so I never actually got to see its face. But as far as the body goes, as far as the white skin and the emaciated detail, that's what I saw crawling on the side of the road. It was not the kind of thing I wanted to encounter late at night. I was writing a book, which is currently out on paperback if you'd like to get a copy. It's called the Laredo Paranormal Research Society. And as we were finishing up the details of the book, I was meeting with the head of the Research Society, Ishmael Quayer, and he was telling me about a story that might go in the book. We weren't too sure it yet. A man had contacted the society who lived down at the county line. Webb County is Zapata County. He lived in an old house on the side of the road, and his bedroom looked right out onto the roof of the garage. The garage roof actually butted up just a few feet below the windowsill. He was laying there in bed, and something got his attention. So he looked out the window, and he saw this skeletal white creature creeping across the roof of his garage, and it went right past the window he was looking out. It scared him so bad that he snuck over to the closet and got his shotgun out, and he spent the night laying in bed with his shotgun by his side in case this creature came back. Now, the creature spotted down at the county line sounded exactly like the creature I had seen under the railroad bridge. Was it the same creature? Till we actually catch one of these things and see what it is and possibly get a better look at it, we won't know, but there are some strange things running about at night. Some large, black, hairy things and some skinny, white emaciated things. You take a choice as to which one you'd rather run into, but personally, I would just as soon avoid either of these creatures. Giant birds. They've been reported all over the country. They call them thunderbirds. And American Indians had legends about these creatures that when they would flap their wings, that was what caused thunder. Some of the legends tell that these birds would occasionally decide to make a snack or a full meal out of a person. These birds were so big that they could literally lift a man off his feet. Take it back to the nest and, well, you can figure out what happens after that. 1975, a giant bird was spotted in Eagle Pass, Texas, which is just about 50 miles up the road from Laredo. They saw this creature circling over the town. A lot of people saw it. It looked as if it was hunting. You've all looked up in the sky when a bird's circling over its prey, and that's what this thing was doing. The only difference was this bird looked huge. The report went out. Everyone in the town heard it, which caused a lot of people to not want to go outside. Instead of spending the day out in the yard, they'd spend the day inside, looking up at the sky out of the windows. Then in January of 1976, a similar creature was spotted in McAllen, Texas, which is about maybe 150 miles south of Laredo. This creature was about 5 feet tall. It had enormous red eyes, and it was spotted sitting on the ground by an irrigation ditch. The witness said it would hop around on the ground very much like any bird would do, except that this thing was 5 feet from the ground to the top of its head. Local radio station was so impressed with this report that they actually offered a $1,000 reward for anyone that could capture this creature. People would go out hunting the back roads of McAllen in hopes of catching this thing and gaining that $1,000. Who couldn't use $1,000? Well, the bird moved on. After several occurrences in McAllen, he was spotted in Laredo, Texas, midpoint between the two towns. Man was fishing with his nephew when he spotted this huge bird along the Rio Grande River. The bird was supposed to have landed near where the man and his nephew were fishing, and it left behind about a 9-inch by 12-inch three-toed footprint in the mud. The local news station was supposed to have had photographs of the footprints, but I'll be darned if I can find them anywhere. The sightings tapered off for a few years. Then in 1980, reports started coming in of cattle being found mutilated out on ranches. This was occurring both north and south of Laredo. The bird was supposed to have been large enough to be able to actually carry off a man or a cow. That would have to be an enormous bird, because even a large owl, which is about 2 feet tall, would have a hard time carrying anyone. They're not very heavy. They don't have a lot of ability to leave the ground with large prey. So in order for a bird to be big enough to carry off a cow, that thing would have to be huge. Several cow were found badly mutilated in and around the area. The locals all said there was no sign of anything walking to the dead animal. There was no sign of anything walking away. It was simply a dead animal laying out in a field. The marks on the cattle apparently appeared to be like talons of a bird of prey. The report stopped coming. No birds spotted, no photographs taken. It could be because the bird simply moved on to another location, or it could be that the people making the reports were getting tired of the ridicule that just seems to always come out whenever someone reports something out of the ordinary. In Alaska, they've still had several of these sightings. One of the birds was supposed to have been the size of a Cessna airplane. How big is a Cessna airplane? They're about 27 feet long and 36-foot wingspan. Try to imagine a bird that big flying overhead. American Indians have stories of this creature still flying overhead. They report still seeing it in and amongst the different areas that they live. So the bird could still possibly be out there. We won't know until somebody actually knocks one out of the sky or gets a very good video of it flying near something that you can judge its size by. The difficulty with anything flying up in the air is you don't have anything to compare it to. So it makes it very difficult to say it was this big or it was that big. Now, the people that said it was as big as the Cessna, well, they were in a Cessna when they saw it. So they did have something to compare it to. There have been other reports of bizarre sightings in and around the area. Some of them believable, some of them not too believable, but the thing is there are some strange things out there, and the only way you're going to see them is if you look up on occasion. You've got kids today that walk around with their cell phone, and that seems to be the focus of their entire world. They're not going to see much if they don't look up once in a while. We're going to take a break for a few commercial messages, and we will be right back. You're listening to Arkanasa Radio. Do you have skin? Would you like to take better care of it? Call Lourdes James, independent beauty consultant, and set up an appointment. Call 723-3019. If your vision isn't what it used to be, and you're not sure you're seeing Bigfoot or just your neighbor mowing his lawn, stop on by Del Norte Optical, 107 Calle del Norte, just across the street from the Embassy Suites. You should be able to see what you're looking at. Looking for a great cup of coffee? The Organic Man Coffee Shop at 1108 Lincoln, downtown Laredo, Texas. Serving only the best organic coffee in the world. Not a coffee person? They have hot chocolate, hot tea, and iced drinks if that's your drink of choice. The Organic Man Coffee Shop, 1108 Lincoln, downtown Laredo, just a half block west of the Mercado.
No, don't say goodbye. Stay with us. This is Arkanasa Radio. Quédate con nosotros. Estás escuchando Arkanasa Radio.
Welcome to Strange Things, broadcasting from the Raimundo Rios Mayo Library in Arkanasa. Welcome back. Hope you've been enjoying the show so far. We've had another set of strange occurrences here in Laredo. It's this little hair-covered creature called El Duende. The Duende are somewhere between 2.5 and 3 feet tall, covered with hair. And some of them are described as being clothed as something like a strange, well, anyways, a strange outfit. They have a peaked cap that goes way up in the air, and some of them are supposed to have a bell that hangs from the end of the peak, that when it rings, it sounds almost like a funeral dirge. The Duende in Laredo was hanging around an area where people would go to get water. This is back in the days when you had to carry your water in a bucket, and this creature would get very upset with anyone that went near the pump trying to get water. It would throw rocks at them, yelling and screaming, and try to chase them away. friend of mine, Ken Gerhardt, was down in South America, and he described the duende as pretty much being the same. 3 feet tall, dressed kind of like a leprechaun. That was the word I was looking for. They looked a little bit like a leprechaun, except once again they're covered with hair. Now, if you look at the pictures of leprechauns, you'll see they've got a beard, but these things are completely covered with hair. They have pointy-toed shoes as well. And the duendes in Belize aren't quite as ferocious as the one here in Laredo. They don't throw rocks at people and chase them around. But they do say that on occasion they've been known to kidnap kids for nefarious purposes. The duende has this peculiar habit of hiding in the bushes in the dark and making a sound like a baby crying. So if a person is walking through the brush at night and they hear this crying sound, well, it's human nature to go looking for the baby. And as you're following the sound deeper and deeper into the brush, well, then the next thing you know, the duende has you to do with as it seems to please. Whatever its idea of fun doesn't sound like a lot of fun to us. Another strange encounter that happened to a friend of ours when we were visiting the Enchanted Rock State Park. Enchanted Rock, if you've never been there, is a giant pinkish-colored granite boulder. When I say giant, I mean giant. This thing is huge. It sticks up out of the ground 425 feet. It is just north of Fredericksburg, Texas, and if you ever get up the way, you've got to go and look at it. And once you look at it, you got to walk up the side of that thing. It's doable. Just make sure you've got good hiking shoes, comfortable clothes. You're not going to do this in sandals and flip-flops. You sure the heck don't want tight blue jeans. It is a trip to get to the top. As you're going up the side of this rock, you will see what looks like footprints running around the perimeter of the rock. Now, how hard would it be to drive your foot into a solid granite boulder? Well, you just can't do it. But you will see these footprints. They go completely around the rock. The legend says that an Indian chief had done something that really upset the gods. For some reason that no one can explain, he was supposed to have sacrificed his daughter to one of the gods, and this didn't set well with anyone, especially the daughter. As his punishment, this chief has been condemned to walk around the perimeter of the Enchanted Rock for all of eternity, and those footprints are supposed to have been what he left behind as he went. Now, that's not the encounter that I was referring to a moment ago. We took a group there to the Enchanted Rock to have a look, see what we could see. It's a fun thing to do on a nice afternoon. One of our members was a psychic, and she is always seeing things that the rest of us don't see. She's very good at it. She thought it was normal, and she was surprised when she was younger to discover that most people couldn't see things that she was looking at. Well, she was telling me after we had gotten down from the rock that she had seen a man sitting on this rock platform staring at the entrance to the park. He communicated to her. He said he was the Watcher. Not too sure what it was he was watching, but he was in the right place if you wanted to watch, because that was the best way to get into the park, because there are ponds and rivers that completely encircle the place, and that is about the only way you can get into the rock. So this apparition was there keeping an eye on things, and fortunately for us, our psychic was able to witness this guy. He apparently looked like an Indian, and he was just doing what he did, sitting and watching the entrance to the park. Hopefully he wasn't going to do anything nefarious, anything bad. Another interesting story that we have a lot here in Laredo and in other parts along the river, La Chosa. The La Chosa is a owl woman. She is said to appear to people up in the tops of trees and sometimes on the eaves of roofs. And if she looks at you and doesn't do anything, that's your lucky day. That means she doesn't have any interest in you. But if, on the other hand, she looks at you and decides that she wants you for her own purposes, well, your hours are numbered. The story goes that this woman was what they call white witch, a curandera, who, when a person was sick in the village, they would go to her and she would whip up some magic spell that would make them better, cure their ills, as it were. In Europe, these women would have been referred to as the wisecraft, the old lady of the village that when your stomach hurt, you'd go and tell her and she would say, here, drink this potion, it'll make you all better. Later, they started referring to these people as witches. And that's when the Inquisition got started, but, well, that is another story, maybe a couple of weeks down the road. Well, the La Lechosa owl woman, when she has decided that you are her next mark, there's not a whole lot you can do other than run inside the house, lock the doors, and pray. If you are being pursued by this woman, the only thing that will stop her from gaining access is you need a bag of pure salt, uniodined. It has to be the salt without the iodine in it. And you have to leave a trail completely around your house, and this will stop her from gaining entrance to your home. The La Lechosa has been reported numerous locations all up and down the border, not just Laredo, but she's known as the Owl Woman, and a lot of people that I know here in Laredo have reported seeing her. They see her up in a tree, they see her on top of a roof, she looks at them, and then she just kind of turns away from them, which is a good thing. Then, of course, there's everyone's favorite woman, La Llorona, the crying woman. La Llorona has been reported just about every town in Mexico, all along the border, as far north as San Antonio. There are several different stories as to how this woman became cursed. One story is that she had seen a young soldier who she had feelings towards, and she wanted to get to know this guy and become his wife. Now, the woman already had 3 children, and the soldier pretty much told her that he liked her, but he wasn't the kind of guy that wanted to raise some other man's children. Well, the woman was not very happy about this. She wanted this soldier for hers, so she took her 3 children down to the river and drowned them. Then she went to see the soldier to try to win his affections, only discover that he really had no interest in her whatsoever. He had only said that because he was trying to get her to leave him alone. Well, the woman was overcome with grief. Now she has killed her children, and she no longer has a man to pursue. Well, eventually the woman is said to have died, and she presents herself at the gates to heaven, and St. Peter looks at her and says, "Where are your children?" And the woman immediately tries to lie. Well, they're at home, they're here, they're there, they're somewhere else. And St. Peter is supposed to have told this woman, "Go and get your children, and when you bring them back, we will let you into heaven." And so now the ghost of this woman has been seen going up and down the riverbanks, crying, looking for her children. Her only hope of salvation is if she is ever able to find these kids. I don't think she ever will. While working along the riverbank one night, I'm sitting in a unit. I've got everything turned off. I've got it nice and dark because that's your best chance of catching someone. And I see a group of kids walking towards me in the dark. It's not that dark. The kids would stop every couple of feet and look in the bushes like they're looking for a lost dog, or maybe they're playing hide and seek. So I sat there watching them working their way towards me, thinking, well, must be fun to be that young and still have the energy to do that sort of thing. Well, as this group of kids got close to my unit, I'm sitting with the windows down, and the oldest girl in the group says hi to me and asks if she can borrow my flashlight. I asked her, what do you need my flashlight for? And she says, we're looking for La Llorona. It's like, you're doing what? Yes, we came down to the river to look for La Llorona. We want to see if she's real or not. Well, I told these kids, you don't want to find her. If you do encounter La Llorona on the riverbank and the ghost sees you, she will follow you, screaming and crying and begging for you to help her look for her children. Once she is latched onto you, you can't get rid of her. She will follow you home. She will stand outside your door screaming and crying and begging you to come help her look for her lost children. But the best thing you can do when dealing with this ghost is avoid her at all costs. And don't send your kids down to the river to look for La Llorona. If they do find her, she's coming back to your house, so you're going to be stuck with her too. That's our show for tonight. We hope you've enjoyed it. We'll be back next week. We'll be talking about the moon. What's so strange about the moon? Well, you might be surprised. There are lots of strange things dealing with the moon. So until next week, my name is Chris James. This is Strange Things, and we'll be back.
Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man, they say murder 3? Strange things that happen here, how stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree?